Hello and welcome to the XtendedGreg YouTube channel. I'm Greg, and on today's show we have another part of our ASMR soldering series, which is the Audio VU Meter Assembly Part 2. If you haven't checked out Part 1, be sure to click the link right here to watch that. But otherwise, we're going to be doing the mount, and we're going to also be doing the connectors to be able to make it sing. So let's get right into it. We're about to get extended. Okay, so what we're doing today is we're going to be taking the VU meter that we built in a previous video, and we're going to be powering it through USB and feeding it through this 1/8 inch right angle connector. Now, this is actually a 12 volt powered unit. It says it right there. So 12 volts, but USB outputs 5 volts, so we'll have to step that up, and that's what this module is for. So this is a step-up converter. It will take the voltage in, step it up adjustably, and we should be able to output 12 volts effectively using it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to strip and prepare this cable. We need to calibrate the actual module itself to make sure that it's 12 volts before we connect it to the VU meter so we don't wreck it. So I'm clipping off the end. Alright, we'll strip a little bit of this. And inside this USB cable, we have a shield. Then we have a foiled shield as well. Okay, then we have 4 wires, and we're only going to need the red and the black. So we're actually going to get rid of everything else. Okay, so now we have the 2 wires. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of heat shrink on here just to make sure that it's clean. That'll work just fine. Alright, so this is double wall heat shrink. Right, what that means is there's actually an adhesive coating on the inside that when you heat it, it's effectively hot glue. When you heat it, it will adhere to whatever you are putting it on. That way it doesn't slide around. In our case, we just want to cover up this jagged edge. Alright, but we can do that right after we solder it. But we want to put it on first, that way we know it's available. We'll strip these 2 wires. Give them a twist. Now, because these holes are so big, by comparison, I'm actually gonna double up the each wire. So I'm gonna fold it in half. Right, and that will do just fine. We'll get our polarity correct. But that will work well. So let's get ready to solder. I have my fume extractor right here, ready to go. So I'm going to turn that on really quick. I'm just going to do this handheld. So a quick tinning of the end of the wire. Let's trim it up a little bit. Perfect. So I'll turn off the fume extractor. Move it out of the way. Now, in order to calibrate this voltage, there's a little potentiometer here on the side. And we'll turn that with a small micro driver right here. And that will allow us to get the voltage, but in order to read the voltage, we're going to hook a multimeter up just by putting the leads through the 2 holes. Okay, so I'm going to push that through that connection. Right, so black on red, or black on negative, red on positive, and we'll also use that to hold it. I'm going to plug it in over here. And right now we see we have 17.5 volts, which is more than the 12 that we want. So we'll go ahead and adjust. So we'll go ahead and adjust the potentiometer to turn it down. Alright, and we see it's going up. So we'll go the other way. That's perfect. We're going to leave it a little bit above 12. We could go down to 12 even, but my feeling is that it may drag it down a little bit once we actually apply a load. So we want to just leave that little bit of room. So 12.02, we'll put it right in range for what this VU meter is expecting. So let me disconnect power. Alright, we do confirm that it discharged. And now we'll turn off the multimeter and disconnect it. So what we can do now is, the way I want this to sit is I'm going to make a square of black plastic just to hold it upright like this, which will make it a lot easier to see on camera since I have my camera overhead. So it'll just sit like this, and then this little power module will just sit underneath it just to keep the footprint small. And then the signal cables will come off to the side. So I don't need much in terms of the overall length that this actually needs. I'm just going to cut off most of it. And what I've done is I've pre-twisted these cables together just because it makes it a lot neater, and you can't do it after you perform the soldering. Alright, I'm going to disconnect this from the VU meter to protect it so it's not in the way. And we're going to do a very similar operation, connecting to the output. Just reconfirm the twist. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up like this. Just try and sandwich the connection because this is such thin cable. Right, so we see our connections there. Let's bring back in our fume extractor. Right, and this is the connection that we're left with. So we have a good solid connection. We filled up the hole. We can trim a little bit off of this, but it's not really going to hurt anything anyway. But since we can, we'll make it very neat and tidy. Right, and we see our twist is maintained. So now all we have to do is this end. And we could have done this end first. That probably would have been a good idea. So the way that these connections work, and this is just a cheap one I got off Amazon. I do like gold-plated because they're not as prone to tarnish until they get worn out. But it has the boot, as it's called, which screws over the back. It has an insulator, and then of course it has the body. And the body has connections internally. So you have the shield, which is the outer ring right here. You have the ring, which is this part right here, right, that second part, and then the tip, which is the tip. So we'll be making the respective connections for each of those. So first we want to put the boot on. So we won't be able to get it on later, just like the heat shrink. Next, we want the insulator. And for this, we actually see that there is a crimp ring. Okay, that will go in here. So let's find a piece of heat shrink that we can use to build up that diameter and make it so we can attach to that effectively. Let's see if this is the right size for this application. I think that will do well enough. And that's what's known as strain relief. So we've cut our piece of heat shrink right here. So we're going to just twist this a little more just to make sure the right diameter, and we're just going to slip it on. Right, and it's good to hold the end of the cable, just twist it since we have a twisted pair or a twisted set of cables here, just so we don't spoil the twist. Now for this, if we look at the actual unit when it's plugged in, and the big thing is making sure the polarity is correct. So we see the yellow cable is our ground. Right, the yellow cable is our ground. The orange cable is our left. The white cable is our right channel. And the way that correlates on this is the ring. So we'll be connecting here to connect to the sleeve, Sleeve is our ground. The ring is right, which is this connection here. And the tip, which is this connection here, is the left channel. So that's the way that it's standardized for these connections. Just to make soldering easier, I'm going to stagger the cuts on these. Actually, I'll go a little bit shorter on this. There we go. I'm just going to open up strain relief, just to make it a little bit easier. So we'll bring back in our fume extractor. And we're going to do this from the bottom to the top. So first we're going to tin all our connections, which means we're going to just apply some solder to them first. Because we're not using the through holes or anything else like that. And we'll just do them one at a time. We want to use the least amount of heat possible. We're not burning through it. Okay, so we see our junction is complete. Right, so now we'll reassemble our connection. I'll move the fume extractor away. Okay, so we'll heat shrink this. Alright, so we see it is now shrunk. We see a little bit of glue spilling out on the side. Okay, and now we can close down our retention clip. And the key point with this is that if it can't move, the connections themselves cannot break. And we just want to make sure that there's nothing shorting inside of the connection, and that it's not moving anywhere as we pull it. So now we can put our insulating layer over top, and you see how that works, and that will shield it from the shell, which in this case is also metal. Right, and now we have that connection, and we see a little bit of the heat shrink sticking out the end, just for added protection from the cable, for the cable. We'll straighten out our twist a little bit. And there we go. So now we have our connection. So let's heat shrink this side and then put it all together and see how it works. All right, and for this, we're just going to slide it and go all the way, almost all the way to the cable. Okay, so on this we see we got good glue connection. It shrank down almost all the way, so it's going to support those wires. And that way, it looks a little bit cleaner. So, and I'm going to zip tie this to the piece of plastic that we're actually attaching it to, just because I think it'll make it act a little bit more as one unit. We'll take this, we'll plug it in. And this does have a mode switch on the back that we can press to choose gain settings, etc. So let's try this. Okay, there's no smoke, which is good. I'm not sure what the modes are. So we'll plug in the receiver. Which the connector is almost larger than the receiver. So it's not doing what we expect. But let's take a look at our current output voltage. Right, which we see is reading at 12 volts even. So it's not a voltage issue. Check, check. Check, check. Check, check. Check 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. So here we have the final assembly. So we have a piece of plastic, and this is just a 1/4 inch, or about I would say 3 or 4 millimeter piece of PVC sheet that I've cut into a rectangle. I've drilled a couple holes just to provide strain relief, and then drilled 2 more holes, and then placed in some brass inserts. I'll cover what these are in a future video, so I'm not going to go over it now. But these will actually provide the threaded connection to be able to support the VU meter PC board. So first we're going to install 2 of these, just to give us the appropriate spacing. So we have our 2, and in our particular case, because I want to be able to film this with the overhead camera, it's going to be facing straight up in the air. We'll take our assembly, and I've done a test fit, so you see that it's pre-spread. That way I can fit these cables over the stud, just so it doesn't move. And then the actual VU meter we'll just screw down using 2 additional studs. Right, and I'm not particularly excited with the way that this has only the notch to be able to mount it. It just doesn't make for the most secure connection, but for the purposes of this, it is solid. It's not moving, it's not sliding out. To be able to mount it effectively, I think will be just fine for our purposes. But if this was something that was going to experience more vibration, for example, I think it would need a more solid mounting. In order to strain relief this, we're going to use a standard zip tie. So we're going to place it through one of the holes, feed it back through. Pull it tight. And then we're going to use diagonal cutters to flush trim it so it's not sharp. And lastly, on this side, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to strain relief this connector, since this is going to be free like it is now. We want to make sure that we're not putting stresses on the soldered connections or on the connector itself. So we're actually going to zip tie this to the stud and flush trim that as well. So there we have it. That's the completed meter. And I actually have two of these that I've created, also labeled the left and right channel. For some reason, the left and right is swapped on this as it is labeled. I'm not sure what the reasoning is for that, but that is how it ended up when I did some tests earlier. I'll put in some footage right here of what these look like when they're working. Thanks for watching the video today. If you would like to see more videos in our ASMR soldering series, click this link up here. Also, if you liked the video, be sure to hit that like button and leave a comment down below. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and then hit that notification bell. That way you know the next time we're getting extended. So until then, take care.